There's a specific moment that happens at every family gathering, every holiday dinner, every reunion where relatives you barely know suddenly become deeply invested in your personal life. You're sitting there, single, content, living exactly how you want to live. And someone always asks the question with that particular tone of concern mixed with judgment. So when are you going to settle down? When are you going to find someone? Don't you want to get married and start a family? And in that moment, you're expected to apologize, to explain, to justify why you haven't conformed to the script that everyone else follows without questioning. But here's what nobody at that table wants to admit. Your single life terrifies them more than any horror movie ever could, because you represent the possibility they gave up, the freedom they surrendered, the rebellion they never had the courage to attempt. Arthur Schopenhauer spent his entire philosophical career examining why human beings voluntarily walk into cages and then spend the rest of their lives defending those cages as palaces. And what he discovered about marriage, relationships, and societal conformity will explain why staying single in modern society isn't just a personal choice. It's the last genuine form of rebellion that actually threatens the system. By the end of this video, you'll understand why married people react so defensively when they encounter someone who chose differently, why society invests so much energy trying to shame single people into coupling, and why your refusal to follow the relationship script is more revolutionary than any political statement you could make. Maybe you're single and tired of defending your choice to people who should mind their own business. Or maybe you're in a relationship and starting to wonder why you feel trapped by something that was supposed to set you free. Let me paint you a picture of what happens in corporate offices everywhere, every single Monday morning without fail. Sarah walks in talking about her weekend. Had to attend her partner's friend's wedding where she knew nobody. Had to smile through another engagement announcement from people she's never met. Had to participate in conversations about relationship milestones and timelines and when they're planning to take the next step. Had to. Then Jessica walks in, spent Saturday morning at a pottery class she's been wanting to try for months, took herself to dinner at that expensive restaurant she'd been eyeing. Sunday disappeared into a creative project with zero interruptions, zero negotiations, zero compromises about how to spend her own time in her own life. Who had the better weekend? Everyone with half a brain knows the answer immediately. But here's what makes this dynamic absolutely fascinating from a psychological perspective. Sarah will spend the next 15 minutes explaining why her weekend was actually meaningful, why relationships require sacrifice, why partnership is about growth, why being alone is sad and relationships are fulfilling. She's not trying to convince Jessica at all. She's desperately trying to convince herself that the freedom she gave up was worth what she received in exchange. Schopenhauer watched human beings perform this exact psychological gymnastics their entire lives, justifying their choices, romanticizing their limitations, calling their voluntary imprisonment liberation, and he asked one absolutely brutal question that nobody wants to answer honestly. What if society's obsession with coupling isn't about love or happiness or human connection? What if it's about control, about making sure nobody escapes the system, about ensuring that everyone is too busy maintaining relationships to question the larger structures that govern their existence? Before you close this video in defensive anger, before you tell me I don't understand real love, before you list all the beautiful reasons why relationships are worth it, just answer one simple question, with complete honesty. When was the last time you made a major life decision, changed your career path, moved to a new city, took a significant risk, pursued a dream that scared you, without having to consider, consult, negotiate, or compromise with another person's needs, fears, limitations, and expectations? If you're coupled and you can't remember the last time you acted with complete autonomy, Schopenhauer knew exactly why, and what he understood will make you see your entire life through a lens you've been avoiding. The person in a relationship envies the single person for reasons they'll never articulate out loud, because admitting envy means admitting they made a choice they're not entirely happy with, and admitting that means facing a truth that could unravel everything they've built their identity around. So instead, they perform contentment while secretly wondering, what if I'd stayed single longer? What if I'd never compromised? What if I'd chosen myself instead of us? Schopenhauer said that the individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe. But relationships aren't just tribe. They're signing an unwritten contract that says you'll be overwhelmed willingly, daily, emotionally, for the foreseeable future. The single person represents something that genuinely terrifies people in relationships, living proof that happiness doesn't require a partner, proof that meaning can be found in solitude, proof that you can build a complete life without merging your existence with someone else's expectations, needs, timelines, and limitations. This isn't about denying that love exists or that connection matters. Love is real and connection is valuable. But this is about the institution that society insists love requires. The relationship escalator that everyone must ride, from dating to commitment to cohabitation to marriage to children, as if deviating from that path makes you defective somehow. Schopenhauer saw through that manufactured urgency instantly. He understood that we've conflated love with obligation, passion with contract, intimacy with ownership. And once you make that conflation, you trap yourself in a paradox where you can have autonomy or you can have partnership, but society tells you that wanting both makes you selfish and immature. The coupled person chose partnership, but late at night when their partner's asleep and the house is quiet and they're alone with thoughts they'd never share, they wonder about autonomy. They wonder what the single person is doing right now. They wonder what their life would look like if they'd chosen themselves first and kept choosing themselves. And that wondering, that quiet envy, that secret curiosity, that's what this entire video is actually about. Which city are you watching this from right now? Stay with me, because what Schopenhauer understood about human nature, conformity, and the will to live will reveal why staying single isn't loneliness or failure or something to fix. It's the last genuine rebellion available in a society that needs everyone coupled, distracted, and too busy managing relationships to question anything deeper. Every person in a relationship remembers the exact moment their autonomy died, and it wasn't dramatic. It wasn't during some big fight. It was smaller, quieter, more insidious than that. It was the first time they wanted to do something completely reasonable and realized they couldn't just do it anymore without explanation, without consideration, without making sure it worked for someone else's schedule and emotional state. They had to check in, not because anyone explicitly demanded it, but because that's what relationships require. Checking your spontaneous desires against someone else's needs. Filtering your authentic impulses through the question of how this affects us instead of just me. That moment when freedom became negotiation. When your life became our life. When I want became we should discuss. That's when they felt it. That door closing. That autonomy dissolving. That part of themselves disappearing into the relationship entity. Schopenhauer wrote that life is suffering, and the cause of suffering is desire. But relationships create a specific type of suffering that's even more complex. It's the suffering of wanting things you can't have because having them would hurt someone you care about. It's the suffering of suppressing parts of yourself to maintain peace. It's the suffering of watching opportunities pass because pursuing them would create conflict. The single person doesn't carry this specific burden. When they want something, they can pursue it without betraying anyone. When they need change, they can create it without destroying someone else's sense of security. When they feel called to transformation, they can follow that call without having to drag a reluctant partner through their personal evolution. This freedom is invisible to people who've never lost it, but people in relationships remember it viscerally. They remember being able to decide on Thursday to fly somewhere on Friday. They remember spending money on themselves without guilt or explanation. They remember silence that was actually silent instead of loaded with unspoken expectations. They remember being whole instead of half of something that's supposed to be better, but often feels like less. The first reason staying single is the ultimate rebellion is about resisting society's most fundamental control mechanism, the nuclear family structure that keeps everyone working, consuming, reproducing, and too exhausted to question the system. Society doesn't just encourage relationships. It aggressively punishes singleness through social stigma, economic disadvantage, and constant messaging that you're incomplete without a partner. Tax codes favor married couples. Housing costs assume dual incomes. Social events are designed for pairs. Holidays become torture sessions where relatives interrogate your relationship status, as if being single past 30 is a diagnosable condition. This isn't accidental. This is systematic pressure designed to push everyone into the coupling system, because single people are dangerous to the status quo. They have time to think, energy to organize, freedom to resist, money to save instead of spend on family obligations. Schopenhauer understood that civilization requires conformity to function, and the relationship escalator is conformity's most effective tool. Get people partnered, and suddenly they need bigger apartments, more furniture, nicer cars, family vacations, and they're working harder to afford the life that partnership created, which means they have less time to question why they're working so hard in the first place. The single person opted out of this entire cycle. They're not working overtime to afford a bigger place for a partner who needs more space. They're not buying things to impress someone else's family. They're not trapped in consumption patterns that relationships inevitably create. And this opt-out is genuinely threatening, because if enough people realize that single life is actually better in many tangible ways, the entire economic system that depends on coupled consumers starts to crack. Every single person who stays single by choice is telling society that they see through the programming. They recognize that the relationship escalator leads to a destination that benefits the system more than the individual, and they're refusing to board that escalator no matter how much pressure society applies. The second reason staying single is revolutionary rebellion, is about maintaining intellectual and creative freedom that relationships systematically destroy through emotional obligation and time consumption. Schopenhauer himself never married. He recognized that philosophical work requires solitude, deep thinking demands uninterrupted time, and creative breakthroughs happen in silence that relationships inevitably shatter with their constant need for attention, validation, and emotional processing. Every person in a relationship knows this reality, even if they never admit it. The book they wanted to write stays unwritten because evenings disappear into relationship maintenance. The skill they wanted to master stays unlearned because weekends are consumed by couple activities and social obligations with other couples. The creative project that could have changed their trajectory stays abandoned because relationships require you to be present for someone else's needs instead of absent in your own creative zone. This isn't about partners being demanding or relationships being bad. This is about the mathematical reality that relationships consume time and attention that creative work requires. You cannot be deeply available to another person and deeply available to your creative process simultaneously. Something has to give, and usually what gives is the creative process, because the relationship demands immediate attention, while the creative work can always wait until tomorrow, which becomes next week, which becomes never. The single person protects their creative time fiercely, because nobody is there to guilt them about being unavailable. Nobody is there to interrupt their flow state with questions about dinner plans. Nobody is there to make them feel selfish for disappearing into their work for hours or days or weeks when inspiration strikes. This protection of creative solitude is increasingly rare in a world that treats being alone as pathological. But every significant creative achievement in human history came from people who had enough solitude to think deeply without interruption. And staying single is how you guarantee that solitude remains available, instead of being slowly eroded by relationship obligations that feel minor individually, but add up to complete creative suffocation. Schopenhauer believed that genius requires isolation from the masses, that profound thought happens in withdrawal from social demands, and relationships are social demands that never stop demanding no matter how understanding your partner claims to be. The third shocking reason is about sexual honesty and freedom from the monogamy myth that society enforces through relationships. Schopenhauer understood that human sexuality is not naturally monogamous, that sexual variety is biologically encoded, that the romantic myth of one person satisfying all your sexual needs forever is exactly that, a myth, a beautiful story society tells to maintain order, but not a truth that reflects actual human nature. People in relationships are expected to deny their attractions to others, to pretend that sexual novelty doesn't matter, to suppress desires that don't fit within the monogamy framework, and this suppression creates a specific type of suffering that nobody talks about honestly, because admitting you're attracted to people outside your relationship is treated as betrayal, even when you never act on those attractions. The single person lives in sexual honesty. When they're attracted to someone, they can explore that attraction without guilt or betrayal. When they desire variety, they can experience it openly. When their sexuality shifts or changes, they can follow those changes without having to renegotiate a relationship contract. This sexual freedom is profound because sexuality is fundamental to human experience, and being able to express it honestly without shame or suppression or the constant management required in monogamous relationships, is a form of liberation that coupled people secretly envy every time they feel attraction. They have to suppress or fantasize about variety they can't ethically pursue. Staying single means you can be sexually authentic in ways that monogamy makes impossible. You can desire multiple people without being a cheater. You can explore different expressions of sexuality without destroying someone's trust. You can change your sexual preferences without having to convince a long-term partner to change with you. This authenticity is rebellion because society insists that real love means sexual exclusivity, that commitment requires denying your actual sexual nature, that growing up means settling for one person forever regardless of whether that arrangement actually satisfies your genuine needs. The single person rejects this framework entirely, and in doing so reveals that the emperor has no clothes, that monogamy works for some people and not others, and forcing everyone into the same sexual structure is as absurd as forcing everyone to eat the same food. The fourth reason staying single is ultimate rebellion is about refusing to perform emotional labor that relationships demand constantly regardless of whether you actually feel like performing it. Every relationship requires maintenance, checking in, processing feelings, managing conflicts, providing reassurance, offering validation, being emotionally available even when you'd rather be emotionally absent. And this labor is invisible until you're in a relationship, and suddenly you're expected to be an emotional support system for another adult who chose you specifically to meet needs they can't meet themselves. Schopenhauer would recognize this immediately as the will to live manifesting through emotional vampirism, where people enter relationships not to connect with another whole person, but to extract emotional resources from someone else, to fill voids they refuse to fill themselves. The single person opted out of this labor completely. When they come home, their emotional energy belongs entirely to them. They can be moody without explaining why. They can be withdrawn without someone taking it personally. They can be completely focused on their own inner world without someone demanding access to that world for their own emotional stability. This freedom from emotional performance is massive, because emotional labor is exhausting. Having to manage your own feelings plus someone else's feelings plus the feelings about the relationship itself is triple the emotional work, and people in relationships are doing this work constantly while convincing themselves it's love when often it's just exhausting obligation. Staying single means your emotional energy is yours to spend however you choose. You can be depressed without someone needing you to not be depressed because your depression affects their mood. You can be intensely focused without someone feeling neglected by your focus. You can go through personal transformations without having to bring someone along who might resist those transformations. The fifth revolutionary aspect is about financial autonomy and the ability to take risks that coupled life makes nearly impossible. Schopenhauer understood that freedom requires financial independence, and relationships create financial entanglement that limits your options dramatically. When you're single, your money is entirely yours. You can save aggressively, invest dangerously, spend frivolously, quit your job to pursue something uncertain, move across the world on intuition, make financial choices based purely on what you want, without considering how those choices affect someone else's security, or someone else's plans, or someone else's risk tolerance. People in relationships lose this autonomy completely. Major financial decisions require agreement. Career changes need approval. Risks have to be acceptable to both people. And usually the more risk-averse person wins, which means the relationship moves at the speed of whoever is most afraid. The single person can be financially fearless in ways that build wealth, create opportunities, and open possibilities that coupled people have to watch from the sidelines while explaining why they can't take those chances because of their partner. This financial freedom is rebellion, because society wants everyone financially stable, predictable, risk-averse, and relationships are how society enforces that stability by making you responsible for someone else's financial security, which makes you conservative with money even if your natural inclination is toward bold financial moves. Every single person who builds wealth through aggressive investment, who changes careers without permission, who takes financial risks that pay off, is proving that the coupled path to financial stability is actually the slow path to financial mediocrity. The sixth reason is about the authenticity of not having to perform a role that relationships always require eventually. Schopenhauer spent his career trying to get people to become who they actually are, rather than who society demands, And relationships are role-playing exercises where you become boyfriend, girlfriend, partner, spouse. Roles that have scripts and expectations that might not match who you actually are underneath all that social conditioning. The single person can remain authentically themselves without performing relationship roles. They don't have to be the supportive partner when they feel unsupportive. They don't have to be emotionally available when they need emotional solitude. They don't have to pretend excitement about things that bore them. They can be exactly who they are in every moment without editing themselves for someone else's comfort. This radical authenticity is almost impossible to maintain in relationships because relationships require compromise, and compromise requires suppressing parts of yourself that conflict with your partner's needs. And over time, you forget which parts are authentically you, and which parts are the performance you created to maintain relationship harmony. Staying single means you never have to wonder if you're being authentic or just playing a role. You never have to question if your preferences are real or adapted to match someone else's preferences. You never have to perform enthusiasm for social events you hate or interest in topics that bore you just to be a good partner. The seventh revolutionary element is about time sovereignty and owning every hour of your life, instead of negotiating for time like it's a limited resource that someone else controls. People in relationships spend enormous amounts of time on relationship maintenance, date nights, quality time, checking in, processing conflicts, attending events with their partner's friends and family, and all of this time is gone, consumed by relationship obligations that feel necessary, because that's what relationships require to survive. The single person owns their time absolutely. Saturday isn't for us time, it's for whatever calls to them in that specific moment. Evenings aren't for connection, they're for solitude, if solitude is what they need. Weekends aren't for couple activities, they're for disappearing into projects or doing absolutely nothing, without explaining themselves to anyone. This time sovereignty is perhaps the most precious form of freedom because time is the only non-renewable resource humans possess, and being able to spend it exactly how you want without negotiation or guilt or compromise is a luxury that coupled people gave up the moment they entered their relationship. Schopenhauer understood that time is the medium through which we experience existence, and whoever controls your time controls your existence. Staying single means you control your own existence, instead of sharing that control with someone whose needs might conflict with your deepest desires. The eighth and final reason staying single is the ultimate rebellion is the most profound and most threatening to the social order. It's about proving that happiness, meaning, fulfillment, and a complete life don't require romantic partnership at all. They never did. Society just convinced everyone they did to maintain the coupling system that civilization depends on. Every single person living a genuinely happy single life is a walking refutation of everything society teaches about relationships being necessary for human completion. They're proof that you can be whole alone, that solitude isn't loneliness, that independence isn't isolation, that choosing yourself isn't selfish, it's honest. This proof is dangerous because if people realize they don't need relationships to be happy, then the entire social structure built on coupling starts to collapse. People stop compromising themselves into partnerships, stop having children they don't want to cement relationships, stop working jobs they hate to support families they built because society said they should. Schopenhauer knew that society's greatest trick is convincing individuals that their interests align with society's interests when usually those interests are opposed. Society needs you coupled, reproducing, consuming, working, but you as an individual might be better off single, child-free, minimalist and free. And staying single is how you discover which life is actually better for you rather than which life society insists you should want. Here's what Schopenhauer understood and what every genuinely happy single person eventually discovers. You can serve yourself or you can serve society's expectations, but you cannot serve both. Most people serve society's expectations and call it maturity, but some people serve themselves and discover that rebellion tastes like freedom. Drop into the comments right now these exact words, "I choose myself," and notice what shifts inside you when you claim that truth publicly, when you admit that you see through society's programming and you're refusing to comply. Your comment isn't just words, it's a declaration of independence from expectations that were never yours. It's a refusal to apologize for choosing autonomy over approval. Subscribe immediately because you just proved you're capable of thinking independently in a world that punishes independent thought. You're willing to question assumptions that most people never examine. And this channel exists for people exactly like you who refuse to follow scripts they didn't write. Hit that like button right now because this message needs to reach everyone who's being pressured into relationships they don't want, everyone who's being shamed for staying single, everyone who's wondering if something is wrong with them for preferring solitude to partnership. Your engagement isn't for me. It's for the person watching this alone at midnight wondering if they're broken for not wanting what everyone else wants. And your like tells them they're not broken, they're awake. What's coming next will detonate another comfortable illusion you've been living inside. Another philosophical truth that society buried because it threatens the system. Another idea that will either liberate you completely or disturb you so deeply you can't ignore it anymore. You need to be here when that revelation drops because missing it means staying trapped in assumptions that are costing you the only life you'll ever have. And the people who understand that are the ones who break free while everyone else keeps compromising themselves into relationships calling it love, wondering why they feel so alone together. Stay free. Stay honest. Stay single if that's what serves your actual life instead of society's expectations, because Schopenhauer knew the truth. The only cage worse than the one you're locked in is the one you locked yourself in while calling it love.